I was working in a supported living home for people with autism and other mental health conditions. It was a big, old house. 6 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, office, all converted for supported living and so on. The top floor had 1 bedroom and 1 utility room. The guy in the top bedroom couldn't communicate very well, but was pretty chill. He had a baby monitor in his room connected to the living room so night staff could hear if he needed anything. I started taking night shifts. One night, I heard him talking over the intercom. "Hello. Not fun. Don't do." Not fun and don't do are phrases he uses when he's feeling stressed or pressured. I went upstairs to check on him. He was sat up in his bed, lights off and staring at his wall. I asked if he was okay. He said yes and lied back down. Okay. 2 hours later, I heard footsteps coming downstairs. I figured it must be one of the guys getting a drink. I looked around the doorway, and there was no one on the stairs. To get to the kitchen, they would have to walk through the room I was in. There was no way to get there otherwise. I thought I must have imagined it and returned to work. 10 minutes later, I heard the footsteps again. I could clearly hear someone on the bottom 3 steps, and then on the wooden floor at the bottom of the stairs in the hallway. I went to check again, and again there was no one. But I did notice a small bracelet on the bottom step. That was weird because there were no female residents in the house, and no female staff on shift that night, so who could have put it there? The next day, I handed it in to the manager and explained what had happened. They asked everyone, and nobody recognized the bracelet. The bracelet was put on the notice board in the entryway with a note for whoever dropped it. I started my shift one night and noticed that both the bracelet and the note were gone. I asked the shift leader about it, and he said he hadn't noticed who'd claimed it. I thought nothing of it and got on with my work. Before we locked the office up for the night shift leader called me over, said that the baby monitor for the upstairs bedroom had been reconnected because of suspicions that one resident was using the empty room to smoke, which wasn't allowed in the house. I said, no problem, I'll just listen out for any movement. At about 4 a.m., I heard noise on the monitor. It was a faint crackling, almost like someone was stroking the mic upstairs. I stopped and listened in case a resident was trying to sneak into the room again. I heard the door to the room open, then shut. I figured he must be in there again. I went upstairs and opened the door to the room slowly to try and catch him. The room was dark and very quiet. I opened the door fully and turned on the light. There was nobody in there. I got a real uneasy, kind of nervous feeling as I left the room for some reason. I knocked on the suspected smoker's door to check on him. He opened the door about 20 seconds later, clearly having just woken up. All the other residents were asleep. I'd know if they weren't because when they wake up, you know about it. They are not quiet. I was heading back downstairs when the door to the empty room started to open slowly. I froze. That room was empty. I stayed still and stared at the door for what seemed like minutes. It was open a good 10 inches or so, just held open by itself. I moved my head to try and see around the door, and it slammed shut. I thought, okay, that was the wind, right? I checked all the windows and doors in the whole house, twice. None were open, and there were no drafts. I was pretty creeped out, but by now it was 6 a.m., and I only had 1 hour left, so I just finished my tasks and listened to some music. Nothing else happened for about 5 weeks after that. Skip forward to what happened 3 nights ago, during my night shift. I got to work around 9:30. Everyone, staff and clients, were on edge, and everyone seemed stressed. The shift leader told me that one guy, Andy, had been worked up all day and had hit a staff member. Andy was running up and down the stairs now, shouting. He did not want to go to bed. Every time the staff asked him to go to bed, he would either scream or say, "Sarah." His key worker confirmed he had no relatives or friends called Sarah. Due to his condition, he really doesn't use names unless it's the name of someone he knows well. The staff inquired about Sarah, and he kept replying, "Upstairs, noisy." The staff reassured him and told him he needed to go to bed. He looked at me, clearly terrified, and grabbed my arm. I had never seen him like that before. He was staring right into my eyes and said, "You come, help me." I agreed, as I just wanted to get him to bed at that point. We got upstairs to his door, and I went to open it. He cried out and said, "No, you come, help me." I was so confused. He took my arm again and led me up to the top floor. "Andy, this isn't your room. Sarah's room. Noises!" I felt my heart drop. We were stood outside of the room with the baby monitor now. The room was still empty. Nobody else had moved in yet. I told him that the room was empty and that he should get to bed now. He became agitated and started pointing at the door. "Sarah, let's go home." What did he mean? He'd never used the phrase "let's go home" before. Screw it. I really needed him to settle down for the night, so I agreed to open the door for him. I opened the door, and he went inside first. As I stepped in and turned the light on, I got this weird feeling. I had never had this before. Every hair on my body stood up. My head was tingling, and my hands got really cold. Andy turned and stared at me intently. I said, "See, nobody in here, man." He just stared at me. My hands had visibly changed color now. They were all purple looking and mottled. Andy kept staring at me. Then, suddenly, without moving his head, his eyes darted to my left. He stayed deadly still, staring. "Andy, are you okay?" He looked back at me and raised his arms into the air. "This is my home now." He emphasized each word when he spoke, and did so quite slowly. He was creeping me right out now. "That's right, Andy. So let's get to bed, huh?" He turned around and started shouting, "Sarah? Sarah? Sarah?" Not upset or agitated, just shouting like you would if you were calling for a friend in another room. He started to shout "Sarah" again, but stopped halfway through saying it and whipped around on the spot. He was staring into the corner of the room now. His face just changed. He was smiling so wide. I had never seen him like this. He started laughing, then turned to me. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Look." He pointed to the corner of the empty room. "Sarah is here now." I looked from him to the corner and back again. What was he seeing? We left the room, and he finally settled to sleep. He's been agitated ever since, but last night was a whole new experience entirely. Since the incident with the room, Andy's behavior has been getting worse, more violent, more agitated. Yesterday he hospitalized a staff member. He's quite a small guy, but can really pack a punch. He has his meds, and everyone does their best to settle him down. Last night, I got to work as usual, about 9:30. The shift leader called me into the office for a chat. Andy's been acting very strangely all day. He keeps lying on the floor in the spare bedroom and shouting, "Sarah." I told the shift leader about what had happened when he took me to the room. He told me the room was now locked and gave me the key for the night. I asked, "Is this something to do with his condition? Is it his meds?" No side effects of the meds or his condition should cause problems like this. Everyone was in bed, and everything was quiet until about 3 a.m. The baby monitor started feeding back. I turned it off, then turned it back on, and checked the settings. All seemed fine. There was still feedback noise from the speaker, though. I had to go check the receiver upstairs, in the ghost room. I got to the second or third step on the stairs. "Hello." A quiet, very soft voice on the baby monitor. I was freaking out. I didn't know what to do. That sounded like a girl. No one was in the room, and no women in the house right now. I got a sudden feeling of, heat in my arms. I thought, what is this now? Screw it. I decided to go up to the room. I unlocked the door and turned the light on. Holy crap. Andy was lying on the floor in the middle of the room. "Andy, what are you doing here?" How had he gotten in here? I had the only key, and I had just unlocked the door. As my shift had started, I had seen Andy go into his room to bed. The door to the ghost room was already locked at this point. How had he gotten in there? He sat up and looked at me. Suddenly, I got that same cold feeling again. Sarah wants to go home now. I didn't even respond. What do I say to that? He stood up and pointed to the door behind me. Sarah wants to go home now. I opened the door. There was nobody out there. As I turned back, Andy charged at me. He full-on tackled me into the wall. He was screaming, his nose about an inch from mine. His eyes were so wide and bloodshot. I pushed him away and restrained him. He started crying and went limp. I heard the shift leader running upstairs. Everyone was awake now. I explained the whole incident and filled in all the necessary forms. The shift leader seemed a bit off, and I think he thinks I'm up to something. Andy was sat in the living room having a hot chocolate. The shift leader was asking him loads of questions. I got the other service users back to bed and headed into the kitchen. I heard a kind of rustling noise on the baby monitor again now. I called the shift leader over. "Listen, that's upstairs, in the room." He sighed and headed upstairs. I stayed downstairs to keep an eye on Andy. Suddenly, the shift leader shouted out, "Jesus Christ!" I ran upstairs to find him on the floor in front of the ghost room door. I helped him to his feet. He was frantic, trying to lock the door. I asked him, what the hell happened? He was pale now, shaking. He could barely catch his breath. I swear there was a person in the corner of that room. I got him to explain more. He said he saw the shadow of someone hunched over in the corner. The same corner Andy kept pointing to. He said that the door kind of blew shut with such force that it knocked him to the ground. I turned around to see Andy peering through the gap in the railings on the stairs. We acted normal to try to get Andy downstairs. He was staring at the door to the room. "Sarah's hurt." The shift leader and I looked at each other, both thinking, screw this, without actually saying it, I guess. Andy pushed past us and started hammering on the door. Not again. He was beating the door so hard, not screaming, not saying anything, just pounding at the door. We pulled him off, and he ran away downstairs. He'd put a hole in the door, and now his hands were bleeding. The shift leader was starting to freak out. He went to call the manager, as I tended to Andy's hands. Once bandaged, Andy just smiled at me and said, "Good night," and calmly walked upstairs and got into bed. He didn't seem to be in pain or anything. He just happily went to bed. This morning, as part of the incident report, we interviewed Andy. The manager searched the room, which is apparently company policy. She came back downstairs with that bracelet I found in hand. She asked, "Why was this under Andy's pillow? Is it his?" Obviously not. It was blatantly a girl's bracelet. He had obviously taken it from the notice board and placed it under his pillow. Thankfully, my shift ended just after that. I've got 3 days off now, but I'm still feeling pretty shaken, to be honest. I'm thinking of maybe setting up a recorder or something in the room when I get back to work. Any thoughts? Maybe try EVP or something? I've never had a paranormal experience before this, so I have no idea how to approach the subject. Any advice?